All right, Joe, another great night here on the O on August 3rd, 2013, and today was the People's Choice. And Joe, how did you think it turned out?
Yeah, I tell you something, Big A, it turned out just amazing. You know, I'll tell you something, you know, the fans is it's the fans that really make OSWA. And I'll tell you something, I think they did an incredible job in choosing the matches tonight. I think we had some incredible action, and with that, some incredible responses from our fans.
You know, I'll tell you something, Joe, a lot of wrestling promotions don't like to put the future of their company in the hands of the fans. But we here in the OSWA, we got faith in our fans. I'll tell you something, that faith paid in spades tonight. Basically what happened was, if you were a fan, you can get a raffle ticket. It was put into a bucket. Jackie Damian would pull, and then the ticket, and then whoever's ticket was called got to choose who was going to wrestle. And I'll tell you something, our fans picked some great matches tonight.
Now, I got to admit, Big A, you can never underestimate the power of the fans. That's for sure.
Joe, sounds like to me you're a big fan of people power.
Of course I am. That's why I'm in the OSWA.
Well, I'll tell you something, the first match that was chosen was the Show versus Jake Hughes and a mystery contestant.
Yeah, you know, Big A, I don't know, I was pretty curious about who he was going to choose for his mystery partner.
We had a lot of guys back in the back, you know, you could have chosen anybody, but Joe, he chose Alpha McFly. He's back. Can you believe it?
You know, I'll tell you something, Big A, I don't understand what he was thinking. Because you know what? He even asked that fan, can I choose my own partner? And of all the people we had in the back, he chooses that delusional, weird Alpha McFly. He thinks he comes from the future. He's all delusional, like he got in some time machine, drove 88 miles an hour or whatever, and happens to just wind up here in 2013, and he's going to start wrestling? I don't get that one bit. I would never want that guy in my corner because I'm afraid that while I'm wrestling, if I get myself in a situation, what's he going to do? Like, oh, now I need to go to 1986, and then he's just going to drive off and leave me there?
Well, Joe, the good thing is, I'll tell you something, as you know, whenever we do our recaps, we love to interview our wrestlers, and tonight we are interviewing Alpha McFly.
Well, that's great. I think he's a great wrestler. I can't wait to have him here. Come on in, Alpha. What a privilege it is to have you here at the OSWA.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Yes, Alpha McFly is back. He's been gone since May. I had some things I had to do in the future, because I am from the future, 2069 to be exact.
Exactly.
And had some things to do, and tonight was the night for Alpha McFly to return, because it was people's choice. People's choice here at the OSWA.
See, even he's a fan of it. People's choice.
People's choice.
And I think had the people known that he was here, he probably would have been chosen for the match anyways.
Most likely. I think me and Jake Hughes are very cohesive together. We're reminded ourselves of an old tag team. I won't name names, but I'll remind ourselves we're good. We're tag team specialists.
So I'll tell you, let me ask you, since you're from the future, what does the future hold for Alpha McFly here in the OSWA?
Well, I tell you what, I picked tonight as the night to come back to the OSWA for one reason, and that's Mr. Hollywood. Now, Mr. Hollywood, he comes in, he gets the tag team belts, and cashes in that golden ticket, gets the tag team belts, but that time is over. It's time for him to return to singles action, and Alpha McFly is here to answer the call. And there's one date in October where Alpha McFly will defeat Hollywood. And I've seen it from the future. I am from the future. Some people might think I'm delusional. I don't know anybody here that would think I'm delusional.
I don't think so. I think you're perfectly clear.
I would not think you're delusional at
Okay,
all.
just making sure, because yes, time traveling is real. I've seen it a million times with Marty McFly.
That's
my
true.
distant relative, Marty McFly. So, Mr. Hollywood, I'm going ahead and issuing the challenge out. Come October, time versus money.
Well, man, I'm looking forward to it. It's great to have you back, Alpha.
Tell you what,
Alpha, always a pleasure.
always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
Gotta go save some money in the future.
There we go.
Absolutely, there he goes. You know, now that he's gone.
Yes, Joe, now that he's gone and he can't hear you anymore and you're safe, go ahead.
No, I want to be professional here.
I'm looking forward to it.
I'm just saying, there's one problem he had during this match tonight.
What was that?
And that is, he couldn't control his temper. You know, he was always distracting the ref because he was always so mad that Jake was getting beat down by the show. And so what does he do? He blows his fuse. And then the ref has to pay attention to him, just leaving Jake Hughes to be totally eaten up by the show.
Joe, I'll tell you something. I think they had great chemistry here tonight. You know, Jake Hughes and Alpha McFly, for two guys that have never tagged before, they had great chemistry. You know, they came in, they were able to isolate the members of the show in their corner a lot of the time, and I thought they did great. And I'll tell you something, Joe, I think the ending kind of testified to how good of a tag team they were, because the show is an experienced tag team. They should have been able to go over on Alpha McFly and Jake Hughes, but they couldn't. It was a disqualification. Why? Because Security Shane, who I think probably he thought Alpha McFly had a quart of sweet tea in his pocket. He grabs Alpha McFly, slams his leg into the unforgiving ring post. Jake Hughes now has, Rod Bull up against the ropes. they're not listening to the ref. Neither team is, and so it's a double disqualification. Really, no win. And for an experienced tag team like the Show, your Man Crush, they should have been able to go ahead and beat them, and they couldn't. And I think it testifies once again to the great abilities of Jake Hughes and Alpha McFly.
Well, you see, there's this one part where you're wrong. You see, yeah, it was a double disqualification. Yeah, there was no winner on either side. But there's one thing, though. There was a fight that continued after that match, after the bell was rung. And what happened after that fight? You had Alpha McFly, you had Jake Hughes on the ground, couldn't get up, incapacitated, and who was walking away, who were on their feet, who were even taunting them to keep on fighting? The Show. The staple of... In fact, I wore gold to pay homage to the Show because they are the golden standard here in the OSWA.
All right, well, nice to know that you try to color coordinate your outfits to your Man Crushes. That's great. Then we had Matt Devlin versus Curtis Coleman.
Boy, I tell you, man, Curtis Coleman, you gotta love that guy. This was his second match. You know, he had his first match here at the OSWA last show, and he dominated. And man, he came back, and guess what? He did it again.
He didn't dominate this time. Matt Devlin really brought to him. Matt Devlin, by the way, who's gaining a lot of popularity here in the O, he was the People's Choice for the Corporate Ladders match 2 weeks ago, and once again, he's wrestling here. Dude, the fans love him, and he did a great job. He comes in, and he hits him with the Devlin Death Slam and knocks him out, but unfortunately, the ref had been knocked out by the splash he did prior to that. So he gets on top of Curtis Coleman and is laying on top of him easily for a 10 count, when who comes in? D-Fresh Rogers comes in.
D-Fresh Rogers, and I tell you something, he came in, it doesn't matter. What happened was the Stay Fresh. The Stay Fresh finishing maneuver. Of course, all his moves are Stay Fresh. There's a Stay Fresh dropkick. There's a Stay Fresh body slam. There's a Stay Fresh clothesline. It doesn't matter. The point is, he won with the Stay Fresh. Curtis Coleman, once again, the winner. And D-Fresh Rogers, new tag team partners, they are going to dominate the OSWA, and I see that in the future.
Okay, Joe, by the way, your sunglasses are very dark because I don't think you're able to see into the ring, because what really happened was, folks, was that Matt Devlin was on top of Curtis Coleman. He was on top of him, and then D-Fresh comes in, picks up Devlin, hits him with a sidewalk slam, and then drags Curtis Coleman on top of him, then wakes up the ref, who then gives him the 3 count.
You know, it doesn't matter how he won. The point is, we have a new tag team in town, new kids on the block. And they're going to come in, they're going to take over, and they're going to dominate the OSWA. So, you have my word.
So, Joe, the NKOTB, do you think they've got the right stuff?
You know, it doesn't matter. The point is, they're here, and they're ready.
90s reference. So, anyways, then we had Jimmy Lee and versus Zach Daniels. Zach Daniels, I'll tell you something, this guy, he gets into the show all the time. He doesn't have a contract. He keeps trying to get a contract. He thinks he can get one by insulting Clint Eller, which is hilarious because he's our commissioner. But anyways, one time he came in here as the pizza boy and sat in the crowd. But anyways, so he comes in and he wrestles, and the People's Choice was for him and Jimmy Lee to go for it. Absolutely. And I'll tell you something, Lee did try to get into Zach Daniels' head with some of his sophomoric antics, but unfortunately, it wasn't enough.
Not at all, PK, and I'll tell you something, Zach Daniels is one of the best wrestlers we've ever had, and it's a travesty that we are not letting him here in the OSWA, because he's great, he's perfect, and he's hungry. He's doing everything he can to get in here, and I think it's foolish, and it's a black eye in the OSWA that we are not letting such great talent in.
Joe, you've got more man crushes for some of the guys here in the OSWA than the show Oz.
You might call it a man crush, but I'll tell you something. I see talent, and I see money, and I see what puts people in seats, and he's one of those people.
Well, I do admit, he does get the crowd going. And I'll tell you something, he was really bringing it to Jimmy Lee until, Taco was the guest referee. Yeah. Gets a little distracted. Okay, so Jimmy Lee...
Distracted?
Yeah, distracted.
I'll tell you, I've never seen such corruption, such one-side refereeing than with that guy, Taco Grande.
Now, Joe, you accuse him of doing a slow count, but you have to understand, he's got to go from Spanish to English. So before he can say one, he's got to go uno in his head, and then one, and then he's got to wait, dos is two, tres is three. So I think that's what kind of slowed the count down.
No. You don't have to think to count. I can count in all sorts of different languages like that. 1, 2, 3, uno, dos, tres, un, deux, trois, un, deux, tres. It doesn't matter. You count, they lose. He was corrupted, he was bought off, and I can testify to it that those counts are way too slow, and if he can't translate that fast, then he's got more problems than being corrupted. He's got mental issues.
Well, Joe, the thing is, the ultimate winner was, Jimmy Lee. He was able to take that bag of trash and he basically knocked Zach Daniels out with it.
Yeah.
And when he laid down on the ground, he got on top of him. Taco was then no longer distracted and gave the 3 count.
And did you see how fast that 3 count was?
It was
1, 2, 3.
Notice he didn't count out loud, Joe, because he didn't have to worry about translation. He probably realized it was slowing him down, so he just counted him out.
And see, there you go, scraping at the bottom of the barrel. You know what? The point is, he cheated. He has something out for Zach Daniels, saying, you know what? I have a feeling in my bones that someday he's going to pay for that. Because Taco, he can dance around, he can eat tacos, he can run to the border, he can do whatever he wants. But when Zach Daniels gets his hands on him, it'll be game over. And it'll be back to Chihuahua or whatever little sewer ratty town he comes from.
Well, Joe, that's pretty strong words for one of our talent. And then we had CC Devlin versus Cody McCauley. I love this part because you know what, Joe? You got your musical debut. CC called you out, and you and him saying every rose has its thorn to an audience member.
Did you see how that lady was looking at me? Man, I tell you something, her eyes were so glazed over. She was so starstruck.
I think they're glazed over, Joe, because of the halitosis in your breath as you were breathing on her. But I'll tell you something. Joe, honestly, the best part of that duet was it sounded real good. Do you want to know why?
Because I was singing.
Well, you were singing, but luckily for you, CC Devlin was singing over you to cover you for your lack of tone.
No, we just have a good harmony, We just do very well together. I think, when Mr. Hollywood and I are having girls chasing us all over the Beverly Hills
Joe, you have to
area,
understand they're chasing you because you keep trying to look into their windows, so they come out and they chase you away. So yes, they are chasing you, but you're not very clear on the reasons. But anyways,
think what you want. Maybe they see that I might have an interest in them. They're like, oh, please come pay attention to me. Well, it's not that easy with me and Mr. Hollywood. Let's move on.
I agree. So then, CC, the match is going back and forth. He hits Cody McCauley with a stunner. And, of course, the guest referee at this point is Keith Cage. Keith Cage then hits him with a stunner, lays on top of him, and CC counts him out for the win. And I don't know who to give the win to. Do we give it to CC or do we give it to Keith Cage?
Well, the thing is that Keith Cage, you know what? Once again, we have a guest referee, and guess what happens? We have corruption, we have disorder in the ring, we have pandemonium. And I'll tell you something, PK, he better watch out. Because Keith Cage, that little crowd pleaser, that guy who just relies on what other people think, he's going to get it. He's going to get it.
Joe, I'm very impressed. The big words you're using, you're definitely getting over your monosyllabic disorder, and we appreciate it here in the Recall. Then there was Will Caution and Z versus Mystic Storm and Cody Fairview. And I'll tell you something, these were 4 guys that were just kind of thrown together, but it was actually a really good match. And I'll tell you something, Will Caution, he is kind of he is who he is. He's kind of a jerk. But, for him tonight, this was a special match. It was a tribute match to his friend, Stevie Bryan, who had died 2 years ago.
Absolutely, PK. I'll tell you something. You can say what you want about Will Caution, but I'll tell you this about Will Caution. He's a fighter. Do you remember that corporate ladder match? I've never seen a guy taking such a beating in his life, but he kept coming back.
And I'll tell you something else about Will Caution. He's a backstabber. But we'll get to that on another day when we do his documentary. But anyways.
Yeah, keep talking.
But I'll tell you something. The match was going back and forth. Fairview, he started to get the upper hand, then Z hit him with a spine buster, while Mystic Storm was taking a beating outside the ring by one Cody McCauley. And of course, Z gets the pin. I'll tell you something about Cody McCauley. He has a tendency to bite off more than he can chew. So now what? Is he going to be mad at Mystic Storm and Keith Cage?
No.
Once again, I smell a big feud coming on, all because of Cody McCauley.
I'm thinking he's very smart, because how do you get better in this industry? You overreach. You look for more and more people to fight. Because that's how you're going to get better. That's why I see a bright future for young guys like Will Caution and Cody McCauley, because they're always looking for greater challenges. My hat's off to them.
What about young guys like Matt Devlin and Keith Cage?
People pleasers. They're not going to go anywhere.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I'm glad to see you're about as one-sided as the CNN election coverage.
No, because history is made. History is made by those who are willing to go against the grain.
Okay, well then, Joe, then there was, of course, one of the big matches of the night, Inc. versus God's Gift to Wrestling.
Wow, PK, I'll tell you something, man, those guys, all 4 of them, wrecking machines. They are the most experienced tag teams that ever stepped foot into the O Show, and tonight they were facing each other. My gosh, PK, I didn't know where to start. I didn't know where to end. It was just domination from either side.
Dude, they were both trying to prove who was the better wrestling, who was basically the best in the world.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something, it was incredible to watch these guys, because I'll tell you something, one team was definitely bigger than the other, but I think they were still equally matched, because but one team didn't make up in size, they made up for it in speed and agility, and both teams are powerful, don't get me wrong, but it was just a serious back and forth. At one time, in my opinion, that victory could have gone either way. Inc. could have won, or God's Gift to Wrestling could have won.
Absolutely, PK. You know what? And I'll tell you something, man. When you go up against guys like Goth and Psycho, those kind of people, you got to really watch what you're doing, because it's getting hit by them. it's like getting hit by a tidal wave. You better watch your back, you better watch your side, you better watch wherever you're going, because those guys, they will get you.
You know, Joe, I'll tell you something. I was kind of disappointed with the ending. You know, it was basically a disqualification, giving Ink Inc. the win. What happened was Jake Hughes and Jackie Damian came in, and they basically took chairs and hit each member of Ink Inc., both of them going down. But then Jackie Damian then takes a chair and hits the Morning Star, Mike Huckabee, and knocks him out. Because what happened was Mike Huckabee, before the match, said what Chris Damian should have done, instead of letting his woman get involved when he came in to rescue her, he basically should have kept her at home, making him a sandwich and being a good woman. And I'll tell you something, I could see why she would have got angry.
Well, I tell you something, PK, I think she made a grave error, because Chris Damian will pay for it.
And you're right, Joe, because I'll tell you something, Ink Inc. after that, they issued a 6-man tag challenge to themselves, God's Gift of Wrestling, and Jake Hughes and Chris Damian. And I'll tell you something, they're not happy, God's Gift of Wrestling.
No.
In fact, God's Gift of Wrestling said, I could quote them, they basically said, tell Chris Damian he needs to keep his kitchen appliance at home and not let his boyfriend, Jake Hughes, get involved in their matches. So I'm willing to bet in October, when we see that 6-man tag at our big show, it's going to be an incredible matchup.
You better tell your friends, you better tell your neighbors, you better tell your dogs to get here, because that's going to be the match of the year. I see it, you see it, that's going to be one dangerous performance.
And Joe, the final match of the night, the second main event, Chad Silva versus Zach Blaine. And what a great match that was.
That was, PK, and I'll tell you something. We saw once again why Zach Blaine was the big man. He was not the weak link of that tag team. It was Chad Silva, as I always told everybody, and once again, I'm right.
Joe, once again, you couldn't be more wrong. Joe, let's face it, how did that end? First of all, the track star, Zach Blaine, went ahead and did some running around. I think if you were to time how long he was in the match, actually in the ring, probably would have been like less than 3 minutes. But anyways,
it doesn't matter. Point is, he had Chad Silva on the ground. He went to work on his knee.
You're right.
He had him on the ground. He had him breathing in pain. He had him screaming in pain. You know, that's not a track star to me.
Well, Joe, he did work on that left knee, and I'll tell you something, that has definitely been a problem because they keep working that every week. And I'll tell you something, had Chad Silva had a manager, he may have thrown in the towel and ended that match. But Chad Silva's a fighter. He wouldn't give up. And he started getting the best of the track star, Zach Blaine, when he was able to finally get his hands on him. And what happens? The show. Once again, your boys get involved. Rod Bolt comes in and decks Zach Blaine, giving him the victory, and now the corporate championship.
The win is a win, PK, and I'll tell you something right now.
It's not an honorable win.
It doesn't mean, I talked to, Zach Blaine, I'm sure he's going to, it must have been a misunderstanding between him and Rod Bolt. They're going to work it out. But the point is, he's a champion. He wanted to win, by pinfall, but it just doesn't work out that way sometimes. So the point is, he is our new corporate champion, and nothing can be said about that or done about that.
Well, Joe, he definitely is. But I'll tell you something, I am looking forward to our show in 2 weeks on August 17th. That's going to be a great show because we've got another Golden Ticket Battle Royal. It worked out great for the show. When the show paid off Jimmy Lee to jump out of the ring so he could win the Golden Ticket, and then he cashed it in, the show did win gold. They got the Tag Team Championship.
I tell you, man, they work smart, not hard sometimes. They work hard, but they also know how to work smart. Man, that's why they are the Golden Stable.
Well, I'll tell you something, I'm looking forward to that match. I'm looking forward to more to come that week because I'll tell you something, our shows just keep getting better and better and our crowds keep getting bigger and bigger. Folks, you can follow us at oswaentertainment.com. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/OSWA, youtube.com/OSWA Entertainment, and you can also follow us on Twitter. And Joe, I'll tell you something, I got another phone call this week. Mr. T wants his starter kick back. Folks, it was great. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Listen to him.